I am like pretty excited to finish this. It won't be finished anytime soon. Like, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like how many, like so many wraps. That's how many wraps this is around. Like this goes all the way to the bottom of the paper. And there's like at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then I can't really see, but there's more than 20. This is wrapped around the loom more than 20 times. I don't know how quick I'm gonna get done this project. It's gonna take some time. What am I gonna do with this? This is just like really like not tight. I don't know what to do. No, well, I'll just ignore it and hope it goes away. That's what I'll do. But yeah. So yeah, it's more than 20, so I'm gonna just estimate and say I'm curious, next time I advance the warp, I'm curious how many twists will untwist. I don't think many. I think each warp is about 1 or 2 twists around. Like, that's not... Yeah. Obviously, it gets thinner, the circumference gets shorter towards the center, but further we go, but I don't know. We will see. I know that it did I know it was a lot of yarn. It was about 200 inches. How many meters is that? 3 meters, I think. 200 inches is 600 centimeters. So 6 meters? Yeah. Yeah, 5 or 6 meters of fabric. It was 5. Which hopefully I'll have enough left to. May not. Chance I won't. I'm like halfway through this shuttle, and I've only got it, well, I don't know, like 5 or 6 here. Either way, it's gonna be close. I do have a bit of a plan, not a real plan. I should look and see. I do have some rainbow yarns back here. This one's rainbow-ish. But that one's a bit thicker than what I want. But yeah, I do have a couple rainbow-ish yarns back here. Rainbow, and I think that's thin enough. No, it's not. It's really thick. But yeah, we'll figure it out. I do have some rainbow yarns. Or I could spin some more of just like a different yarn. And see if it goes nicely. Find my like, because I want I still want to use like lace weight yarn, right? So yeah, I might just find a different. Oh, there's another broken warp thread. Just like that, the number of broken warps doubles. So I will be like it will be like a constant back and forth, like, you know, knit or not knit, weave, you know, weave a bit, break some threads, fix the threads, and repeat. There are ever kind of like two threads very close to each other that are broken, I will kind of do a kind of more in-depth fix where I have to like, but for the most part, I'm not gonna worry if that happens. If threads break, because it's just gonna be a constant kind of deal with it when it happens. Don't worry about it. Aside from that. But yeah, we'll see. It's been an hour, and I've done about 1.5 sheds, or not 1.5, 1.5 lengths of the weaving area. So that's cool. I keep having to like move over because I'm too close to the wall. Don't know. I think I've marked the wall a little bit. They didn't paint it properly anyway, so I'm not really sure why I care. But I care. So the reason that I am like messing with the warp every time I'm like pushing it down or pulling it up with the from the fabric is just because I want to make sure that the warp fully separates. So I can do that, push this down, push up from the bottom, and then I know that the warp is fully separated, or it sure should have. And I can put the shuttle through the shed. Similarly here, this is a bit less awkward to push down from the top, which is why up shed is always preferred. Doesn't always completely perfectly fully separate, but yeah, nobody's perfect. So I had some really good sauces that I got from some stores, and one of them was moldy and the other was just didn't look very good. So I threw it out. Like they didn't go, sorry, they came from takeout restaurants, not stores. One of them was like a mint something or other that was really good. It's like some spicy chicken. So like the spice with then like a creamy sort of mint sauce went really well together. It was like Pakistani food, I believe. My roommate went out to get it. Some. And yeah, that was really good. I'd never had Pakistani food before, so. hit my knitting machine. My knitting machine's like literally just like right beside me. I did yesterday. Actually, I can move that. Yesterday I did some knitting on my machine, and that was cool because I ended up finishing what I was hoping to do, and basically, so my first project so far that's actually come out kind of the way I intended it from the knitting machine is that I just knit 2 rectangles of fabric. Nothing special, just 2 plain rectangles of fabric. And what I'm going to do with them is sew them into a garment. I'm thinking a tank top, but I made them way too long, so I think maybe I could use the 2 rectangles that I cut off as sleeves. That's my thoughts. Like I could cut them into a sleeve shape. Because the thing is, like, if you've ever had like a t-shirt knit fabric that you've bought from a fabric store, if you have ever tried sewing with a stretch knit fabric, it's the exact same as if you're sewing with a knitted fabric. You know, except that the stitches on a hand knitted fabric or a home machine knitted fabric are probably going to be more bigger than the ones that you get from like t-shirt fabric. But if you've ever like cut and sewn a t-shirt, it's the exact same thing, just bigger stitches. So I figure I can do that. I figure I can try that. But yeah, that was kind of like my first, like, oh, what can I do on the machine? I guess I can kind of try and figure out a way to make a really simple garment, you know, without too much shaping or anything, just to see if I can. And it did end up going pretty easily. So I think the next thing I'm gonna try is shaping. The next thing I'm gonna try is just, yeah, shaping the fabric, just the edges, so that it's a little more fitted and I don't have to have these weird like raw edge seams. Instead I can just have the shaped garment and be good. There is one technique that I kind of taught myself with the knitting machine, which is to start off with like a hem, which is pretty cool. I don't know if that's super useful though. For the project that I did, I just felt like I'm probably going to cut it down anyways because I knew I was making it a little too long. I actually made it like way too long. Made it like a dress almost. But yeah, like I figure I can make like but yeah, I knew I was gonna make it too long, so I didn't bother hemming it, knowing that I would have to like kind of cut and then hem it. Okay, so I sewed up, what I did already is I sewed up the side seams just using like mattress stitch, and then I also sewed up the bottom hem, half of it. I'm gonna sew the other half tonight if I have time, which I don't see why I wouldn't. And then I'm going to figure out kind of the top of it. Probably just use the like bits that I cut off as sleeves and make like a short sleeve shirt. Hopefully the seams won't be too unpleasantly bulky. Yeah, so that's one thing I'm working on. Yeah, the next thing I make on my knitting machine will be better planned. That's the interesting thing with like a knitting machine knitting is like when I hand knit, I usually freeform it. I like freestyle it. So I think like what kind of garment do I want? Okay, I want a sweater, right? And so I'm like, okay, how do I want to make it? Bottom up or top down? Figure out how many stitches I need to cast on, either for the neck or for the hips. And then I, knit until I want to do some shaping. Then I figure out what kind of shaping to do and how to do it. Then I knit until I need to do more shaping, and kind of figure out like as I go how long it needs to be. Like I can try it on or hold it up against myself, figure out how long it needs to be and how much shaping it can have. On the knitting machine, I can't do that because it's like on a machine. I can't take it off and then put it back on, and you need to kind of like block it. You need to wash it in order for it to actually become the shape that it's meant to be. But yeah, so I found one yarn that works quite nicely on my knitting machine, and I'm gonna see if I can't find more yarns that'll work nicely. I think the main issue I've been having with the knitting machine is just trying to make it go too fast. I hope that's the issue, because if that's the issue, then I can just learn to calm down and move slower and it'll be fine. That I was just kind of being too rough with it, trying to make it go as fast as I could, physically make it go, and not actually realizing that it had the maximum speed that it can go at. Maybe. Alright, back to the weaving. We are almost done. Knitting machine knitting feels a lot like weaving in a way. I have 4 threads right now that are broken, but that is going to change. I have at least one that I can fix. Let's see. This one's too short. Those ones are also too short. This one might not be. This one's too short. Yeah. This one's not. And so I will boop. And that kind of there. There. Figure out where it goes through. And then find that gap. Hello, Gio. How are you doing today? Alright, that's been repaired. I have 3 more broken threads. Now I got to advance the warp and hope that we're not going to have a problem. I am good. Just getting through this project. Kind of feels like it's taking forever at this point, but that's okay. Lumpy here. What's there? Nothing? It's just a lump? Okay. Need that to be smooth. You know those projects that just kind of feel like they take a while, or they take forever. That's too short, and I won't be able to do anything with it. The other 2 I'll be able to fix. Hopefully I don't have too many broken ones. Is that a pigtail? That is in fact a pigtail. That won't bother me now, but it will bother me later. Is there another? I have 2 pigtails. I did not do the best job flying. Not the best, not the worst, certainly. I'm just kind of moving the heddle up here to kind of separate the threads up here and organize them, make them parallel. And then let's see if this is the downshift next. It's too loose, so tighten it up a little. There we go. But yeah, we've gotten into the project. We've gotten past the point where I'm having trouble with the warps. It's horrible trouble. Now it's just kind of, there's some annoying bits and they do break every so often. This one just broke. But it's better than before, where they were just constantly giving me issues. This shed is perfect. It's beautiful. There's nothing weird about it. This shed's being a little bit problematic. Got a few threads that are just kind of, I think that's kind of the thing about like rigid heddle weaving. I feel like there's a way to do it with 2 heddles, right? Like, so you can weave like double heddle. And what I'm thinking is if I thread all of, like, every other thread through this heddle and every other thread through the back heddle, and then I can kind of have them be interesting. So I might try that at some point. So I can kind of put one heddle in the up position and one heddle in the down position, and that will force the threads to separate. You taught the teen to spindle spin last night. Nice. How are they liking it? Very exciting. Oh my gosh, my shirt has this little detail that just got caught. There's nothing I can really do with it. I've got like a little button and then like a little strap or ribbon or something coming off of it. Can I tuck that in there? I can. Looks a bit weird, but less annoying. I like this shirt, but it's not very well sewn. There's like bits of it that are like peeling apart because the thing has broken. I like the patchwork look, and it does have 2 layers to it, but I had to do some quick repairs to it before the stream today because I was like, it's got it's coming apart. The seams are popping. Gia said she was being hard on herself because her yarn's thicker than mine. You told her that's what she wants. Aww. Yeah, I noticed that a lot about like beginner spindlers who are like, oh, this is like my yarn's not what I want. Or my yarn doesn't look like yours, and it's like that's the point. That's the point. Your yarn's not supposed to look like mine. Because the point of it is to make a unique yarn, you know? I don't know, I feel like there's something about spinning that's very personal, very kind of, nobody can spin yarn the same that I do. Like, it'll be similar, and I can definitely kind of control what I do. But, like, if I ever start spinning, like, a machine, and, like, start spinning consistently, or not consistently for a project, but, like, just spin the same yarn all the time, I'll probably start feeling like, what's even the point anymore, right? Like, I've definitely had that kind of crisis, identity crisis almost, a couple times, and been like, okay, I really need to start experimenting with other yarns. Because I was just feeling like I was making the same thing way too much. Gia says I'm spinning a 3-ply fingering for a project. She knits mostly worsted. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people also, they see, like, the thickness of the yarn as, like, it's like a, goal to make the thinnest possible yarn. And there are contests for that, but I think, you know, a lot of people gravitate to, like, the quality being thinner. The yarn is thinner, right? Like, or the skill being higher, which it's not untrue, but, like, at the same time, there are other skills associated with the craft. And, yeah, a lot of people just don't make a lot of, like, don't use a lot of thin yarn. Like, for me, I think one of the reasons I picked up weaving, and definitely a big reason as to why I bought a knitting machine, is because I have so much thin yarn that I have spun that I don't know what to do with. Like, I know with the thicker yarn, I can just knit a chunk of sweater or something. But with the thin yarn, it's going to take me years and years and years to get through it. And the point isn't to have, you know, thin yarn. The point is to have garments, right? I personally, I like making thin yarn, right? I think a lot of people do, but I don't think that there's anything, but I think a lot of people think that there's something wrong with, like, making thick yarn, or that, you know, you make thick yarn, it means you're not good. Like, even then, it's like if you've just learned how to spin, especially on a spindle as opposed to, like, a wheel, you're not, why would you have to make the best yarn in, like, the first day? It's a skill. It's not just something. Or maybe that's it. I think maybe people sometimes think that knitting, weaving, spinning is like, oh, well, if grannies can do it, you know, that means it's easy, or something like that. Which, it's the opposite. The reason grannies do it is because they have a lifetime of experience. They make it look easy. But it's not. But I think that sometimes people see fiber arts, people see crafts, and they think, oh, that's easy. And then they try it, and they get frustrated very quickly. Because they think that it's going to be easy. That's something that I've noticed from a lot of people. They're like, why am I not, you know, a professional at this? It's like, well, because you know, like, I've just started knitting. Why can I not make things? It's like, well, because it takes, you know, a long time to learn. A lot of people knit their entire lives and never get the confidence to even make a sweater because it's too, complicated. Knitting is a huge, difficult skill, and so it's like spinning and everything else. Right? I think like societally, people think craft and they think macaroni pictures or something. Um, like I don't know what people think, but people think craft and they think like making pom poms or making macaroni pictures or stuff you can do in kindergarten. The concept of a craft has been very kind of dumbed down and in a lot of ways. And like doesn't mean we shouldn't be obviously giving kids crafts. You don't know you enjoy crafts unless you're doing crafts, right? But I think people maybe have this idea is that crafts are for children, or crafts are for, people who are retired or whatever. Like they're easy, that's why people do them. Even just a sweater is just one stitch after another, exactly. Doesn't feel that way, at least for me. When I'm making a sweater, it doesn't feel that way. It's like, this is the part where it's like a sort of a cone shape. This is the part where it's like a tube shape. This is the part where it's like a, whatever, right? Knit with no fear. Absolutely. Everything is fixable. Absolutely. And you might have noticed my pants, but I do tend to like making repairs on clothing. This has a lot of holes in it. It's only going to get more. I was bored on the drive home from the convention, so I took my keys and started keying my pants. I have more holes in it here. And a little rip here. I was just the part that I hadn't repaired. I was like, no, die. You don't have any holes in you anymore. You're not allowed to not have. So I was like, I want to put more patches, but for some reason I want to have more holes first. I tried to put them in places that I thought would look cool. Or at least kind of tie it together, because the idea of it kind of having a bunch of holes that are like just horizontal, like basically is all the holes in my pants. I thought I don't really like that, so I kind of wanted to put some like vertical holes in it. But I was so bored on the drive home. I was just like, let's break the pants. I fix things. I break things just so that I can fix them. That's the kind of person I am. Oh dang, that is true with my knitting though. Sometimes I just like, especially when somebody asks, I love it when somebody asks, like, how do you fix a drop stitch? Because I like to like demonstrate laddering down. Or like try to work it into like, because I actually enjoy kind of like messing around and like messing something up to see how kind of far I can fix it. Obviously not with anything important, but everything is fixable. You just need enough duct tape and you're good. Same with spinning. You mean like in terms of like fixing stuff? Like I feel like one thing that spinning has taught me that is really good to know, because I didn't know this when I started knitting. But it's like how to reattach yarn and stuff, right? Like if your singles breaks, what do you do? You know. Or like if you're spinning and your spindle can only like hold like 10 or 20 grams of yarn, then like like I think when I started knitting, and I think a lot of people who start knitting um or crochet, they buy those like 2-pound balls of yarn from like Walmart. like Red Heart Super Saver or something like that. And you know, they hate and they just like knit and they never learn to like attach yarn once it's broken. But now that I kind of find yarn to be a lot more kind of sacred almost, like a lot more valuable to me because it's all hand spun. Firstly, hand spinning has kind of shown me how to reattach things. Secondly, yarn means enough to me that I'm like, well, if I have like a little length that's kind of been cut off, I can just rejoin it. It's not, you know, a big deal. Yeah, like dropping a spindle. Yeah, yeah. I hate. Every time I drop my drop spindle, I'm just rage, gamer rage. Um, I have so much yarn spinning related gamer rage. But yeah, I think those are skills that I've learned through knitting, but I think some people like don't end up learning them, right? Like I think a lot of knitters really they're like find sweaters very intimidating. I think I've heard of knitters. I think people have come to the stream and mentioned like they can make gloves just fine, but then when it comes to making a sweater, there's no way. And it's like, well, gloves have 5 fingers to them. Sweaters have 2 arms to them. It's physically bigger, so I think that's what makes it kind of scary to people. It's that it's a lot more yarn and a lot more time. But yeah, definitely best to knit without fear. Everything is fixable and you can always reuse the yarn. But I think it is very reasonable to say, well, yeah, but you can never get the time back. And that could be a factor for some crafters is that, like, they, especially for like product knitters rather than process knitters, um, that kind of time sink, potential time sink to make a sweater that then just like maybe it's too big, you know, like if you have a glove that's too big, you can still put it on your hand and it doesn't really look that weird, right? If it's just like 1 or 2 sizes too big. If it's too small, you can put it on and it'll be like most of the gloves that we buy in stores, we don't really bother if they go on our hand, then they fit, right? Most of the time if we buy gloves in a store, then you know, it doesn't really, we don't really worry too much about the fit unless we're buying like super fancy, like sheepskin gloves or something like that. That's a different kind of thing. Um, Whereas with like clothing, we're used to kind of there being a very slight difference between the sizes, so we're going to notice if something is just very slightly too big or too small. I think that's another kind of that's something that I do with sweater knitting and stuff as well. Is I'm just like I don't know what if it's gonna fit me or if it's gonna have positive ease or negative ease. What is even all this? I'm just gonna make a sweater, and as long as I can get it on my body and it's not terribly uncomfortable, then I think I'm good. A lot of people don't feel that way. Your grandmother taught you to knit and sew. Nice. I wish I had a family member. But maybe it's always possible, though, if you have a family member to teach you, that they'll instill their knowledge, but also their anxieties. So it could be better that I didn't. I learned solely off of like Google and YouTube. So I didn't have anybody to be like, you should be afraid of this because I am. Gio says, when sewing, she used to say something that'll always stick with me. As you sew, so shall you rip. Interesting. Okay, so I guess she meant by that, like, as much as you make, you will also repair. Or, repair or just fix. Taught you not to stress about mistakes. That's good. That's good. I like that. We'll try and remember that. Because that is absolutely true. And there's another broken thread. Speaking of mistakes. I mean, it's not really a mistake. Like, I expected this, predicted this. If there was a way to prevent it, I would have. But there is not a way of which I know. But yes, the fixing is part of the process. And that is absolutely true. I think there are a lot of people who are very nervous about fixing and don't need to be. Shouldn't need to be. And I mean, I have programmer friends, right? And they say like something similar is that like you're never gonna write bug-free code on the first try. That you're gonna write your code and it's not gonna work and you're gonna need to read through it, figure out what's not working, do it again. Or fix the bit that's not working, right? Rewrite the bit that's not working. And like obviously I don't know programming, but it is kind of the same concept, isn't it? It's that idea of like you're knitting, you're gonna drop stitch. Like I can't imagine knitting something and not dropping a single stitch, right? Like I drop it and pick it right back up perhaps, but I can't imagine like knitting and not just like accidentally, dropping a stitch off my needles. But I think it's the same with coding. It's that you can't like do the thing without like fixing it, right? Like there's no way to do it without making mistakes. Like if you're really really lucky, maybe you'll just not make any mistakes. But with enough practice, maybe every so often, you'll write something simple and there won't be any mistakes in it. But the likelihood is that there will be. Part of being human is making mistakes. For me, near constantly. But that's fine. You learn through trying, yeah. You learn through doing. I learned how to put on makeup recently. I learned how to do I've always had so much like my my nemesis has been makeup, has been eyeliner. And finally I can do eyeliner. But for me, it took me like years of trying and being like, this is hideous, take it off. And then just kind of putting on eyeshadow and pretending it was eyeliner. Just doing like smoky eyeshadow without any actual eyeliner. Finally, now I can do eyeliner because it's only been 10 years since I started trying. That's something that I was like really slow on learning, that I'm actually really happy that I finally learned, and it's really good for my confidence, because it's like, now this is this thing that I wanted to do for so long, right? You don't bother with makeup. I don't usually. I guess I'm a different person than I was a couple years ago. So I think makeup is kinda, I don't know. I used to think it was really pointless, right? It's like there are certain makeup looks that I enjoy, that I like the look of, but if you're not going to be like, and I like drawing, right? So I would draw characters that have like makeup, right? Part of like cartoon stylized drawing is like you basically just draw the makeup on as though it's the character's eyelashes. You can't really tell the difference between their eyelashes and their eye makeup a lot of the time with like anime characters and stuff. But like when it came to real life, I was like, well, what's the point of doing makeup if I'm not, specifically doing cosplay or dressed up as like, like if I'm not going to have photographs taken of me, if I'm not going to make my body into like a work of art, there's no real reason to wear makeup, right? That was my mindset on it like a few years ago. Then once I started streaming, I also tried to sign up for like a modeling company. They totally screwed me over. They just took my money and did not get me they got me one single audition when I had already said I wasn't going to do like naked stuff, and they wanted me to do like a sex scene. Which it was like, but dude, I already said this is not what I'm interested in, so I'm not going to take the job. But like, yeah, I didn't think, and yeah, it costs money and time. It's expensive in terms of money and time, right? Rather buy fleece and spin it, absolutely. But yeah, but when I did this modeling slash acting job, or tried to, they they said, well, one thing you're gonna have to learn is to put makeup on. So that's when I started. That's about when I started streaming, and that's when I started. Is it? No, that was before I started streaming, and that's when I started trying to learn makeup. But only recently did I like actually start. Yeah, that's when I started learning makeup, right? And I think the other thing is like when I look online and stuff, and like people just look better on camera with makeup, right? That's kind of the other thing is like makeup, it's an easy thing to do, an easy thing to change. And it really makes a difference, at least to my perception of people on camera. Because when you're on camera, you kind of are making your face sort of part of the performance, right? I do think very much, and I think a lot of people who do it think very much of like being on camera, whether you're being, yourself or playing a character, you really do think of being on camera as kind of a performance of sorts. I think of it that way. I think a lot of people do. And so the makeup is part of the performance, right? And so that's kind of why I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to do makeup. Yeah, you don't care how you look. That's fair. For me, I care how I look when I'm doing something like streaming, right? Like, if I'm gonna be filming my face, I care how I look because I'm creating something and my face is involved, right? I care how my creation looks. I guess that's kind of how I think. Like, just like how I care how the fabric here looks, I care how the camera angles look, and I care how my face looks, because those are all part of the thing I'm creating, which is my stream. But in real life, I don't. Like, when I went to the convention, I did my makeup. Partially because I was just really excited that I had finally learned, you know, like, I've only been able to do the, like, eye makeup, the eyeliner for, like, a week or so. 2 weeks at this point, so I was like, well, I want to practice. But, like, also because, like, I was like dressing alternative. And so yeah, I guess that's the other thing, is like, I like clothing. I don't care how I personally look, but I do care how my clothing looks. I think that's another part of it, because if the makeup complements the clothing, like, if I'm dressed like super goth, but I don't have any goth makeup on, you know, or I have like California Beach Babe makeup on, that's gonna look a little weird. So there's also kind of that. It's like, I don't really care so much how I look, but I do like fashion. I'm very passionate about fashion and clothing design, so I care how the clothing looks, and I know that makeup and my face and my body is part of how that is presented. And my hair as well, which I still don't really do anything with, that I should probably learn. But yeah, I totally get not caring how you look. Because, like, before, there was a long part of my life where I was into clothing and fashion, but I wasn't actually concerned about how it looked on me. And then I was like, well, why don't the clothes look good when I wear them, right? I was like, I want the clothes to look good when I wear them. And I didn't kind of click that the clothes will look good when I wear them if I look good when I wear them. And, like, so I think that was kind of my kind of thing that I needed to learn. Like, obviously it's the same thing, but it didn't click. I was just like, I like these clothes, but these clothes look ugly when I put them on me. I guess I just don't, like, I don't know. I didn't understand why. Right? And I think I still have to kind of learn. Dunkin' Donuts, hello, welcome. How are you doing today? We are working on a Pride themed, I guess, rainbows for Pride. Weaving, we spun the yarn from fleece from and thank you so much for the follow, Duncan. We spun the fleece from raw wool straight off the sheep, dyed it, washed it, spun it, processed it, not in that order, and then now we are weaving. And hopefully this is going to be a lovely Pride shirt. I am doing very well, very excited for the end of this project, although I don't think that will be today. But I'm very excited to kind of take the fabric off the loom, so I'm like, with bated breath. Yeah, you said, yeah, I don't fashion really either. I just wear what I want. That's fair. I mean, I don't popular fashion. Like, when I say fashion, I don't mean like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Prada, what are the others? I don't mean like fashion as in like Paris Fashion Week. I mean fashion as in like clothing that looks good. Breeby Gun, hello and welcome. That's I hope that's the right way to say your name. Very cute. Welcome in. How are you doing? You said that's relatable. You think everything works together to add to the vibe you're creating with your look. Also, hello, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming into the stream. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like, I grew up, I hated, so my mom's pretty like, oh, you have to look good, you have to fit in, you have to, you know, be presentable and all that stuff. And my kind of, when I was a kid, um, my opinion on that was like, leave me alone. I dress how I want. I don't want people to be looking at me. I don't want to be presentable. I want to be at the back of the classroom. I don't want anyone to know I'm there. I just want to go about my own life and not be bothered, right? And not worry about my appearance, because isn't that just the most annoying thing to have to worry about, is how I appear, right? Like, isn't that just like, who cares if I have friends that like me for who I am? That was kind of my attitude when I was a kid. And I'm not like, I don't not feel that way still, but because who I am is somebody who likes fashion and likes aesthetics. Now I realize that that does matter to me, just not in the way that like my mother presented it. Like, I was so against it for a long time, which is probably why that I like, because it was kind of forced on me, right? Which is probably why like it took me so long to kind of realize that that actually is something I care about. You can get dressed in the dark and not care. I mean, if I'm going out for groceries, definitely, right? Like, if I'm going out with friends and we're not, doing anything special, maybe we're just hanging out at a coffee shop, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll want to get dressed up for that. Sometimes I don't. And then I just, wear whatever. And then if it's for like an event, or if it's for like something I would want to get dressed up for, then I get dressed up for it. But I definitely have my like I have two. I organize my clothes in two different ways. I have the clothes that go in my closet. They get hung up. They're nice. And then I have the clothes that go in my drawer. And I have these like big drawers sort of under my bed that I just throw all my clothing in. So depending on my mood, I'll either grab clothing from the drawer if I don't care, or I'll grab clothing from the closet if I do care. And it's kind of like that. I have my pair of shoes that are my like default shoes, and then I have like maybe 10 other pairs of shoes that I wear if they match my outfit. Gio says, I did all the caring when I was younger. I feel like I'm just over it. Yeah, and that might be part of it for me, is that when I was younger, I did not care in the least, I didn't care at all. I hated the thought of like people looking at me or judging me based on how I dressed or looked. And now that I'm an adult, I think I care more about it because I see the value in it. Reba Gun says, I feel like now I'm evolving to also want to invoke feelings or concept with my aesthetic choices. Yeah, I do think it's really cool that people are starting to like whatever core, like cottage core or witch core or whatever, like dark academia, not a core, but same thing, like that we have these aesthetic looks that are like, instead of conforming to popular fashion, you can kind of choose a look and choose whether to conform to that or be more creative with that. And I like that. That seems a lot more kind of like that would be, cool, as long as there's no pressure to conform. There's always pressure to conform. Somebody came to the stream a while ago and said, like, I was streaming with some of my friends, and we all had colored hair at the time, and this person just came into the stream, and they were like, that one's the main character because they have blue hair. And it's like, I'm not even, like, anime enough for you. You gotta say that one of us is more anime, even though we're all, like, alternative. I don't know. It just felt like, because, like, I had, like, multicolored hair, and then my other friend, I think she had, like, gray hair, like, gray dreads, and so they, like, singled out my friend that had, like, a very blue aesthetic, and they were like, you are the anime kid. The rest of you aren't anime enough to be main characters. Like, leave us alone. We're all alternative. Don't just, like all alternative kind of anime-inspired fashion at this time. Don't be like saying one of us doesn't look the part enough or one of us looks the part more, right? Like, we're all being, I think they really were just trying to get our goat and be offensive, kind of troll a little bit, but or maybe just to like compliment her and single her out, but it was rude. And I like it in the future. I thought about it. I was like, yeah, this is why does it have to be a contest, right? And Rebegun says, it also feels like a fun way to celebrate your physical appearance, to make conscientious and specific choices like that. Yeah, I do agree. Like, I've always had kind of a weird mommy issues, you know, because of my appearance. My mom really, like, she's very focused on appearances, physical appearances, kind of, you know, and I'm not. I'm still not in the same way she is. Like, she cares about physical appearances because she wants people to like her. And by extension, she cares about my physical appearance because she wants me to look like somebody who's likable, which means skinny because that equals healthy according to her. You know, not alternative, or alternative is okay if it's like interesting alternative, but as soon as it's like you know, like conformist alternative, I'd say my mother is okay with. But as soon as it's like a little bit edgy or a little bit nonconformist, then it's like, oh no, people aren't gonna like you if you have, like when I was younger, it was people won't like you, you won't make friends if you have colored hair because it'll scare everyone else away. And it's like, who would be afraid of the little hair dye, really? Have a lovely night, Gio. Thank you so much for coming in. Others' judgment has nothing to do with me. Think what you want. That is fair. I do very much have like issues with others' judgment. First kind of spurred on by my mother being very judgy herself, and then kind of projecting that onto other people, and me as a kid not knowing that she was just projecting. And now as well, it's like I know how others' judgment can affect my life. Like, I know how people can kind of judge you and then like subliminally, you know, mess with you. I don't really want to get too much into detail about that because it's kind of like a hard thing. It's like takes time to explain, kind of. But I do know that it happens. And so for me, I'm concerned with it because it has directly affected my life in negative ways. In extremely negative ways. Like, I guess I do have an example. Like, when I was homeless for a while, my mother would tell the shelter staff that I was disabled and unable to make my own choices. Like, I was homeless, but my mother still was like, wanted some bit of control over my life without having me live with her. So she would say to shelter staff that I can't make my own choices, and then the shelter staff would treat me like not give me the agency, or you know, like they would start being very controlling of me, right? So it's this kind of domino effect of like, if one person thinks that you're not able to make your own decisions, then other people will think that you're not able to make your own decisions because they'll tell them. And you know, it takes a very special person to say, hey, actually you're wrong. And you know, aside from those very special people, then you end up kind of suffering because of it. If I have been in workplaces where I have told people that I'm autistic, and people have from that moment on, but never before, started, you know, speaking to me like you would speak to a child and taking advantage of me because of my autism, being like, no, you don't, we're not taking advantage of you. You just can't tell because you're autistic. You just think we are because you don't have the perspective because you're autistic. And it's really frustrating because I'm not an idiot, okay? Okay? Like, being autistic doesn't mean you're stupid. By the way, I hope you guys who are here know that already. And if you don't, no, autistic is not stupid, but like they would treat me like an idiot. And like I would complain to one person and they'd be like, oh, this is an issue. And they go to the other person and the other person would be like, no, remember, they're autistic. They don't know. And I'm like, excuse me. Like, excuse me. I'm right. Like, I'm just as right as I was before. So I'm very open about having autism now on my stream because I want people to like interact with. I had someone come like a month ago and be like, girls can't have autism. And I was like, go away, what the heck? Like, I don't believe you have autism because girls can't have autism. And I'm like, firstly, pronouns. Secondly, what is this, the 80s? Like, navigating judgment is always difficult. Yeah. I get the mentality, and I definitely was in that mentality when I was younger of like, I don't care what other people think about me. But that does come from a place of privilege. Once it started actually affecting me very much and I started being able to see how it affected me, then I realized that it really is just a very much of a, if you don't care about other people's judgment, then other people's judgment has not affected you negatively. Or positively, honestly. Like, if positive judgment has affected you positively, then you'll probably also learn that other people's judgment is important. Because it has extremely real effects in the world, right? That's something that my roommate and I often get into fights about, because he doesn't get it. I'm like, hey, like, there's this really cool cosplay I want to watch. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, raiders, hello, Silvani Knits, welcome on in. Thank you for the raid. Welcome, raiders. Thank you so much for coming. Rebegun says, I have ADHD and there's some overlap, and said there are a lot of overlap in autistic and ADHD traits. I've been watching some TikToks because I got TikTok on my phone. It's a bad choice. Poor choices have been made. I will never leave my phone again. But I got TikTok and it starts recommending me these like ADHD kind of like relatable TikToks, and I'm like, everything there. But I think the real difference is the reasoning, like what exactly the effect in your brain is that causes it. Because I think a lot of symptoms of ADHD or traits of ADHD and autism are more coping mechanisms than they are actually directly from the neurodivergence. Hi, it's me again. Hello, welcome on in. Thank you so much for the raid. How are you doing? Let's do a shout out. I don't know, Smiles was here earlier, but I think they've gone to bed. Knitting Super Sock World Championship. Ooh, how is that going? Crystal Street. Is that's the sock name? The pattern name? Welcome on in, raiders. My name is Dev, and I do fiber arts and crafts, and we like to talk about subjects that are sometimes a little bit like, maybe not taboo, but like a little bit things that are hard to talk about. Like, I've been homeless and I have disabilities, and so we like to talk about kind of the real world stuff, so that's what we do here. And yeah, welcome on in. Traits is a better word than symptoms. That's all right. And I mean, like, yeah, and I think the important difference is that symptom, and you did say it in like quotes, so clearly like you understand that that's not what I mean. But I think like symptoms is like kind of directly related to the disability or sickness. And so on the one hand, it makes the disability seem more like a disease, which it's not. I do still argue that it is a disability. It is disabling. It's harder to function in society with the disability. Um, but but it's not a disease, you know, because that infers sickness or something that can or should be treated or cured. Uh, but yeah, and whereas traits are like, firstly, it's not like a direct symptom, right? Like a symptom is a symptom, but a trait is more like it's often something that you'll have as a result of yeah. Heck yeah, my ADHD is super disabling sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Silvani says it's going pretty well. The pattern name is Crystal Street. Nice. How far in have you gotten? And you said it is a warm up. So yeah, I think we were talking last time you came in maybe about the Super Sock World Championship. And Holly Dolly, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome on in. The pattern name is Crystal. Yeah, so how far in did you get, and how are you doing on the warm up? I was gonna say like how far in is the competition so far, but then I realized that you just said warm up so far. But yeah, so we're working on a pride project. For those of you who came in with the raid, I'm scatterbrained. I'm sorry. We're working on a pride project. The yarn is spun all rainbowy, and we started on it from a raw sheep's wool, washed it, dyed it, spun it, and now we are weaving with it in that order. And I'm super excited to see how much fabric I end up with and what I can make it into. Hopefully a nice shirt that I can wear out at Pride next year. Just got through the heel flap. Nice. So are you going top down or toe up? Lap 1 started the past weekend and I'm a bit behind, but that is okay. That is okay. Well, I hope that's okay. I hope that's not gonna like disqualify you or something. I do not know how this competition works. You love the colors. Thank you so much. I did try to just do like a plain rainbow, but it actually ended up having a lot more variation than I predicted. With a lot more pink than red, and then a lot of the very little green and orange. There's like a little bit, but not a huge amount of green and orange. No disqualifications. It's much more chill than Sock Madness. Awesome. Yeah, I'm like, I should maybe look into that. I do want to do like competitions. It would be like I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't know. The thing with knitting competitions is I'm not super fast, but I'm super like dedicated. So I would just like not do anything else except knit for the competitions. That's kind of my thing. I'd be like, I'm gonna win no matter what, even if I don't get any sleep all month. But then it would suck, because if my friends are like, let's go out and do something, and I'll be like, no, must knit socks. Free the Gun says, I bought a drop spindle and some roving in the spring and cannot wait to try spinning for the first time. I want to finish up some knitting projects first though before I start. Oh wow, you have self-control. I don't really know what that is, so cannot relate. I've gotten to a point where I don't buy new materials unless I specifically need them for a specific thing. If they happen to appear in my house and I have not, you know, specifically gone to a shop and purchased them, then it's fine. Also, like tools and stuff, I will. But when it comes to like a new craft or something like that, I will start it as soon as I buy it, because otherwise it will just sit there staring at me, and then I will kind of lose the path. Like I don't know how my brain works, but it's like when there's a craft that I want to try, I have this kind of spur of the moment, like almost like an impulse to do it, right? And so then I look up and I'm like, can I buy the materials to start off fairly cheaply? And then if I buy the materials and I don't start immediately, the materials just sit there forever. But if I do start, then I'll know whether or not I like it. I'll be able to finish it. I'll be able to like get through, like when I started spinning, my first couple spins, it was start to end, no breaks. Same with knitting, same with weaving. Like it's like once I start learning something, I don't have to stop, right? The only exception is like my knitting machine, because I was having so much trouble figuring it out. You know, I'd worked on it for like a week or two and still hadn't gotten it even to just knit some plain fabric. That was like the one exception where I was like, well, I'm frustrated now. I'm gonna put it down and give it some time and come back to it later. But for other things like fiber processing, I started processing all the fiber that I could. Like when I want to do a new project or a new craft rather, I will buy the materials and do it. Can't make plans, too busy hyperfixating. Yeah. Probably have a lot of fun. So Sylvania, yeah, I mean probably. If you got the neurodiverse hyperfocus things, it works well with Sock Madness. Yeah, I figure, but it's also kind of like I wouldn't have a life throughout Sock Madness. So it's kind of one of those, I would enjoy the hyper focusing, but I would eventually feel bad because I hyper focused and did nothing else. And I like doing other things. It would also make my streams a little more stressful, a little less chill, because like I stopped weaving and I'm talking right now. And I like to kind of do that just when I'm like, oh, I'm falling behind or whatever. Or just to take a break every so often. Whereas with Sock Madness, I think I would get very kind of intense and like prioritize knitting over making an enjoyable stream for anybody who's watching. So that's another reason I don't really want to. You're looking forward to Tour de Fleece starting in July. Yeah, I'm gonna want to look into that because I might want to do some Tour de Fleece spinning. I have some fleece that is washed and some partially processed. So I'm honestly thinking I might do some Tour de Fleece. Might go on Ravelry. It's hard not to start, but my hyperfixation right now is knitting, so I can't stop yet. Once you start spinning, you're expecting that to be the new hyperfixation. Honestly, I started spinning like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm not sure exactly. And I'm still in love with it. It's still my favorite thing. The only reason I don't just spin is because then I have so much yarn that, like, what am I going to do with it, right? Like, I need to do something with the stuff that I have spun, or what's really the point of spinning? Like, yes, the spinning is enjoyable, but I'm just going to keep getting more and more and more yarn. And although I could totally put it on Ravelry and show it off to all the people on my Ravelry and Instagram, there aren't very many people on my Ravelry and Instagram, but you know what I mean. Or I could show it off on stream, or on my Discord. It just feels like, you know, what's the point if it's not like my passion is fashion. That rhymes. But my like the thing I enjoy doing the most, the hyperfixation, is very much spinning. Or actually it's well, with autism it's considered a special interest. I think the main difference between a special interest and a hyperfixation, although there is definitely crossover, is that a hyperfixation isn't even necessarily something that you're interested or enjoy. It's just the thing that you're doing right now. Whereas a special interest is something that like lasts years or even decades or even a person's entire life. So like a hyperfixation is like a person get hyperfixated on cleaning their room. But cleaning one's room, unless you're Marie Kondo, isn't really a special interest. Because it lasts a few hours, sometimes a day or two, and then you're done and you're on to the next activity. Whereas then like a special interest is something that basically every time you pick it up, Basically, you're just constantly doing it, or if you could have it your way, you would constantly be doing it. Like spinning is like if I could just do a thing for the rest of my life, I would be like just spinning. But I do actually really like fashion design and would like to make some more things. BB says that is so relatable. Hyperfixations can totally end up making me feel bad when it sucks up my entire life. Absolutely. But also, if you don't give yourself the time to hyperfixate, if you're the kind of person who does, it can also be really unhealthy. I used to work in kitchens, and I would have days when the only thing I can think about is like, I need to make this thing that I have in my head that I'm hyperfixated on, right? Like, it was torture to go to work when my hyperfixation was at home. And I couldn't, it's not like a desk job where I can bring my knitting to it or something. It's like I would love to be like a secretary or work in like a convenience store or something like that where I can bring my knitting and then put my knitting down to interact with the customer and then pick it back up when service is slow. But I would be in the kitchen and we would have slow service and I would be standing there in the kitchen waiting for my next job or like cleaning something, and I would be like, why am I here? I want to hyperfixate. Silvani says, I get a lot done in terms of other crafts when sock madness is going on, because the pace is roughly 1 round every 2 weeks. Okay. I think it takes me like 20 hours to finish a pair of socks. I'm not sure. I haven't timed myself recently. I could be misremembering what my timing was. It could be 40 hours, actually. It could be 20 hours for a single sock. Well, either it takes 20 or 40 hours, which is a huge difference. I think I said it takes like 5 days. So that's probably, I don't know, like takes 5 days of like a decent amount of knitting time. That doesn't really help either. Silvana, you said it takes you 25 to 30 hours from start to finish. I am talking about like a vanilla sock as well. Like nothing fancy. Baby says, interesting, I'm definitely more on the spectrum of hyperfixation than special interest, though sometimes they can last like 5 years. Oh, interesting. I think that I'd say that would be a special interest at that point, although it could also just be a regular interest on which one is hyperfixated. Just because you have an interest doesn't make it a special interest. Having a special interest is almost like having an obsession, right? So it's definitely possible to be like, have a special interest on like a celebrity, for example. That's why sometimes autistic people can seem a little creepy or celebrity obsessed, because like that's actually often like a thing that's actually kind of like casual ableism, is to see like an autistic person and be like, oh, you're like obsessed in like a creepy way, right? When you just don't get special interest or hyperfixation. But yeah, like a special interest is really about needing to know and understand everything about a specific thing. So with mine, it started at fashion, branched out to knitting, branched out to spinning, branched out to weaving, so I can pick up extra crafts, but also it's kind of about potentially knowing all the fashion brands, knowing all the different kinds of sewing machine stitches, knowing all the different possible fiber contents, fiber constructions, or fabric constructions, all the different kind of stitches and weaves and everything like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff. You could know the history of fashion. Like, I've got some interest in historical fashion, so I watched like Bernadette Banner and Rachel Maxey, and they do like vintage historical costuming stuff. And so there is a bunch of stuff where it's like you can branch out, or you can like go kind of smaller, infinitely larger or infinitely smaller or infinitely parallel, right? And that's kind of what a special interest is like knowing everything there is to know about a thing. Uh, Silvani, you said I have to go to bed. All right, have a lovely night, Silvani. You have an early morning. It was great to catch your stream again. Thank you for streaming and enjoy your evening. Thank you so much, Silvani. Thank you for the raid. And we will see you again soon. Have a lovely night and sleep well. Breeby says, true. I have had lots of interests and rotate hyperfixating on them all. Yeah, definitely. Definitely makes sense. Like, yeah, hyperfixations definitely can go on it, but like I think a special interest is really like spinning, but then everything branching out to sheep breeds, different ways of processing, different kind of everything that you can do, right? Historical fashion is really cool. I think something that I really love about fiber arts is that they played a much larger part historically in fashion. Now you set a machine to do it and it does it, right? Obviously that's a simplification, but in the modern world in North America, when you think of like, oh, I want to do fashion design, you don't usually think of the textile part of it, right? You think of the like, okay, so if you're going to do fashion design, where do you get your materials? You get them at the fabric store, right? And I think, but it's like, well, then what, right? Like, that can't be the end of it, right? And so that's kind of what got me down the rabbit hole of like, well, you can make your own fabric on a loom or with needles or with a knitting machine or with felting or with crochet. You can make yarn to use with those things with a spinning wheel, right? Like it kind of goes deeper, right? It's like, and then all that stuff is like, well, we don't do that anymore by hand. We order it from, countries where it's more cheap to manufacture, either because they have a better like factory infrastructure or because they have they underpay their workers or the cost of living is lower there. Hopefully the latter or former. um Kind of described it as getting infatuated with things or people really easily. Yeah. And like there's a lot of kind of different reasons for that. I think for a lot of autistic people, definitely for me, it's kind of a safety thing. It's like I know a lot about this thing, therefore, I kind of feel safe in this place, right? Because like especially especially as an autistic person, I've been called stupid so much. Stupid and related terms. Um, People think I'm not smart because some of my mannerisms or ways of communicating are not as effective as they could be. And therefore, some of the things I say are often misinterpreted, and then people think I don't understand something when really they're the one that doesn't understand what I'm trying to say. You know, I think there's one example where, like, I a lot of people think that I like a different kind of music than what I actually like, right? And I said, I was like, hey, guess what kind of music I like to this one person, just trying to kind of be playful, right? And he was like, oh, well, it's anime music. And I'm like, no, and I play a song which is Japanese, but it's definitely not like related to any sort of anime. He was like, no, that's anime music, right? So it's this idea that I was like, why would you think this is anime music? That's racist. Um, but at the same time, it was like also, this guy and then the other people who were around who backed him up were like, no, because it's Japanese, it's anime music. You're the idiot for not realizing that your music is actually anime music, right? So they thought I was stupid, or maybe they were just being bullies. I don't care. But it's just one of those things where it's like kind of a weird miscommunication where like I know I'm right, and I know it's inappropriate to call all music from Japan anime music. Uh, but at the same time, I didn't realize that that was maybe what he meant by it. I didn't realize that person was the way that, um, Like, and so for that reason, I was like, I can't really defend myself because, like, the fact that you think that all Japanese music is anime music is just, like, so ridiculous to me, right? Like, but so now they think I'm stupid, and I don't think they're stupid. I just think that they're jerks for that assumption, right? Because I don't, like, I heard those people talk. They're not dumb. They're just, make blanket statements that are inaccurate because it sounds smarter to do something like that than to actually admit that, stuff like that, right? And so, like, that's kind of usually been my issue, is like, and so for me, I think a lot of it is really the safety of, like, I know a lot about this fairly niche thing, which is like wool and yarn and stuff like that. People can't tell me I'm wrong. Or, if somebody does tell me I'm wrong, it's somebody else who's as into it as I am. So they won't be, as judgy, I guess. Like, they'll still be nice because it's clearly their passion as well. Ruby says, I love thinking of fashion in a more holistic way, like how materials influence what you can make and properties of the fibers influence. And you're like, exactly, yeah, absolutely. And then there's also kind of the ethical and environmental impact, which I'm definitely not an expert on, but it's definitely also a good thing to think of, and kind of feels nice to be able to have some control over that. Like the idea that like, I think there's this one really common thing that I've been criticized for, which is using wool. Bleeping PETA, decided to go after wool farmers, and just say that all wool is murder. And definitely there are farms that exist that mistreat the animals that live there. Like, I literally got this from, like, an indie farm. Like, it's like I don't know if it was a big one or a small one, but it's definitely like a, like a fairly independently owned and operated farm. It's not a factory farm. Factory farms are the issue, not just sheep and wool. Not just sheep farmers. Do about this. This somehow just got, like, I think it's just gonna come apart, so I'm gonna just break it. Heck. Okay. I think. I don't know why, but that just seems to be. Oh, okay. But, like, kind of being able to kind of like do the research and find out stuff like that. Like, that's kind of another part of it. It's like kind of being able to form my own opinion on that sort of thing rather than just be kind of misled by organizations like PETA is, like, an important thing, at least for me. Thinking for myself, being able to make my own decisions. Like, I don't know everything, but I do know that, like, the idea that PETA just wants to go after all sheep farmers and wool production is pretty sus. I mean, they went after Animal Crossing, for goodness sake. Like, if you're fishing in Animal Crossing, you're not actually hurting any animals in real life. Like, I think it might be fun to play a run of Animal Crossing where you're, like, vegan for some reason. Like, you wouldn't be able to do everything in the game, but, like, where you're, like, no fishing, no bug catching, only and stuff like that, and see, like, how quickly maybe you can pay off all your loans or whatever in the game. But as, like, a PETA saying you shouldn't play this game because it's hard to play without that stuff, it's like, really, PETA? Do you have to? Comet, thank you so much for the follow. And Breeby, also thank you as well for the follow. Also as well, redundantly redundant. Um, Time of night where my internet can. Oh no, I'm so sorry that happens to you. I hate that. Um, so I'm gonna go, but I've had a lot of fun watching your stream. Thank you so much for coming in. I've had a great time chatting, and we'll see you again soon. I try to stream every day that I can. I'm not streaming every day this weekend because I'm actually participating in a crafter streamer event. But I will be streaming once. I'll be streaming at like a little bit later than this on Friday night, Saturday morning. So there will be that. And then every other day, unless I have other things planned, I stream every day for like 4 to 8 hours. Usually try to go around the 6 hour mark. So we will see you again soon. Thank you so much for coming. I always like have to say like my schedule because it's not consistent. It's like time wise, it's not consistent because I have like a sleep disorder, so I can't wake up at the same time every day. It does not matter. I've had people be like, "Oh, if you can't wake up at the same time every day, you should just get a night job." And I'm like, "What part of the same time every day?" It's not that I can't wake up at night, and it's not like I can't wake up in the morning. It's that I can't wake up consistently at any time. Uh, Like, I would love to have it be so consistent that I can only wake up at night. Because, yes, night jobs tend to pay more because they're generally undesirable. Uh, your sleep schedule's messed up, so you can never really be loud when you're at home on your days off because you're midnight. You don't get as much vitamin D, which is generally not super healthy. Um, Shops and stuff are closed a lot of the time. You can't really do the party lifestyle unless maybe you do it before work. But if your friends are like, let's meet up after work in the evening and go to a bar, you're just like, well, that's while I'm working or right before I work, so I cannot participate. Night jobs aren't a bad option if you can't be awake in the morning. The thing is, I can very much be awake in the morning and do prefer to be. I just can't make it happen every day. I do find it easier to wake up in the morning and sleep at night. It's just impossible for me to actually wake up consistently. I think I just have a slightly like weird sleep schedule. Like my brain does not understand the length of the Earth days. But I'm still having a bit of trouble. There are some like broken warp threads again that I'm just kind of ignoring, pretending don't exist. I'm trying my best to pretend. I can see one right here. I'm like, get that out of the way. I don't know where the actual like rest of the thread went. It just disappeared. It's okay. Didn't need it anyway. Definitely need to like reconnect. There's another broken one. Definitely need to reconnect some of these soon. Gotta make sure my edges are nice and neat. And actually, I'm gonna take a break. I do try to take a break every 2 hours, and I got distracted. So I will be back in 10 to 15 minutes. See you guys then. Alright guys, hello, I am back. That took longer than I expected. Oh my gosh, that took so much longer than I expected. I'm so sorry for leaving it hanging for that long. I realized that I needed to take my wool out of the oven. So I did, and it took, boy. And I needed to start, I want to get it done. I gotta get it done. I'm not gonna make excuses for wanting to get it done. But yeah, I took some of the wool that I was dyeing out of the oven and put some more in by staining my finger. So now my finger is green. Not intentional. I put on a glove and then it got a hole in the finger. So what can you do? I hate that. I hate that, like, gloves, when they get like a hole and then you get like the dye into the glove, then it like soaks in. It stains worse. I have like been messing with yarn all week except for the convention for the last like week and a half, and my hands have not gotten this stained. But this time I was like, oh, I'll wear a glove because I'm about to go back to the stream, and of course my hand gets more stained than any other time. Very frustrating and unfortunate, but I'll show you guys what I have so far. So here are the first three colors: yellow, orange, and green. And now I am waiting on the purple to dry, and I have blue in the oven, which is a little bit teal, hence the green. It was mostly blue, but it's got a bit of green in it. Got the blue in the oven, and the red is just kind of soaking in a bit of soap, just trying to get it, all the dye that didn't set out of the wool. But I'm excited for that. That's gonna either be next month's Pride project, or maybe I'm gonna be doing a little bit of work on it this month if I finish this early and I don't end up having enough yarn to weave all the way to the end of this warp. If I just have extra space on the loom, then I'm going to spin up some of the wool. It is the same sheep as this one. I'm going to spin up some of the wool, and if not, then if I don't have extra warp, then I'll just probably save it for next Friday, or maybe do other things with it. I don't know. It's a lot more wool. It's a lot more than this is. Actually, since that's about half of it, I can estimate, I want to estimate the approximate amount. Where's my scale? Is it here? It's in the other room, I bet. I'll be right back. I did not find my scale. I don't know where I put it. Probably somewhere stupid. But I do have the purple wool as well that I dyed. It's really nice, like a nice dark deep. Definitely not like primary color rainbow, but who wants one of those anyway? Way cooler to not complain about a thing that's really pretty. I love that purple color. It definitely is an example. I don't know where my scale is. I don't know how I lost it. It definitely is another example of like definitely is another example of like, I didn't get the color I wanted, but I got a nicer color, and I kind of feel bad because I'm not sure whether or not that's a good thing. Because, like, I had a vision. The vision has changed because the color has changed, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Anyway, I'm too excited about this project. Way too excited about this project. What was I gonna do? I was gonna, like, lay down on the couch for 10 minutes. What did I do instead? I dyed yarn for, like, 20 minutes. Hopefully, no one's too disappointed. Here's another bit of yarn that's just not quite, you know, I'm not gonna mess with it yet. Now my hand's green and it's bugging me. This is just, by the way, green food coloring. It's not